It's almost time.
Happy Halloween, 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 happy Halloween, Super Shamrock.
Happy Halloween.
Hey everybody, it's Jonathan from Burjamar Productions, and we are going to continue with our Halloween reviews slash whatever with Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Ooh boy. I don't even know where to begin with this one. A lot of people don't like this movie. Or a lot of people didn't like this movie, I should say. Why? Because it was a Halloween movie that was stuck in with the rest of the franchise. But it had nothing to do with Michael Myers, it had nothing to do with Haddonfield, it had nothing to do with Laurie Strode. It had nothing to do with anything. And let's discuss why. Why that is. John Carpenter wrote and directed the first two Halloween movies. And that's all he wanted to do. He didn't want to do any more. He didn't want to bring Michael Myers back. He told a story. He told one story in two parts, and that's exactly what he wanted to do. And he accomplished that. And he accomplished that by definitively killing off Michael Myers. And it will be the only time that that happens. So, what do? When the studio still wants movies? He came up with an idea. An idea about taking the Halloween name and doing something different with it. He wanted to be able to... He had this idea of making movies that are about Halloween, that are legitimately about the holiday itself. That has nothing to do with Michael Myers or anything. And it was this, he thought of it as this opportunity for young and up-and-coming filmmakers to be able to put their mark on the world with the backing of a major studio and a franchise name. Now, this was a very good idea, I feel. A fantastic idea. I mean, this movie, the first one, obviously the only one that they did in this vein, was directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. Written and directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. It was the first thing he'd ever done. He's gone on to make some more stuff. Not a lot. He never became a huge name director, but I've seen a couple of the other things that he's done, and they're good. I mean, he's a talented filmmaker. Yeah, that was the idea. It didn't do very well. And the reason was that it was a Halloween movie without Michael Myers, even though that's what it was supposed to be. And here's the rub with that. If you remember in my Halloween 1 review, I talked about how John Carpenter had changed the face of Halloween, of the holiday of Halloween, by making a movie called that and setting a Halloween and making such a massively successful movie. Well, he kind of cursed himself with that because that name became so recognizable for Michael Myers. Because those first two movies were huge movies. You know, it hadn't become a franchise yet, but people were seeing it and they were assuming it was going to be a Michael Myers movie. They were assuming that somehow he was going to come back. And it looked different, you know. You never saw Michael Myers in the trailer, but that didn't matter. People got upset. Nowadays, modern times, people, especially the past couple of years, people have really started to come around to the idea of this movie, and it's starting to really gain a lot of popularity, and very deserved popularity, because it's a very, very good movie. Yeah, it's different, but This is one of those what if scenarios. Imagine if this had done well. And you had, I mean, yeah, we wouldn't have got any of the other sequels to Halloween. It wouldn't have become this franchise that it is today. And that might have been bad. I don't know. It means we wouldn't have gotten it 6, which was a mess, but that's neither here nor there. But it's still a what if scenario. I mean, this could have been a really great opportunity for young and up and coming filmmakers to be able to put their mark on something with the backing of a franchise and the backing of a studio, and be able to tell their own stories. All they had to do was relate it to Halloween. So, with that being said, with a little history for you there, and what was going on and what could have potentially been, there was so much potential for this. Let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. I love this movie, first off. I haven't seen this in a long time. I'll admit that. I haven't seen this in a long time. I watch the Halloween movies pretty frequently on October. I'll watch at least the first one, sometimes some more. But I always tend to skip over part 3. Because I saw it a long time ago when I was younger. I remember I was one of those people. I'll admit, I was one of those people that didn't like it because there was no Michael Myers. Like, what are you doing making a Halloween series without making a Halloween movie without Michael Myers? I was one of those people. I've grown, I've matured. Alright? So it was nice to be able to watch it again with these fresh eyes, and oh man, I loved it. It was so awesome. It's very 80s. It has a very interesting story behind it. It has a very interesting idea behind it. An Irish toy company that makes Halloween masks, and the owner of the company wants to take Halloween back to its Gaelic roots, which there's some confusion there, but I'm going to talk about that later. I'm going to talk about something specific near the end, where we'll get back to that. And there's magic from Stonehenge. They actually steal one of the stones from Stonehenge. They don't explain how they do it. And while I thought that part was funny, I was also extremely disappointed because it's a throwaway line. He literally says, "You won't believe how we pulled it off." I'm like, no, I will. Please just tell me how you did it. I want to know how you moved a 50-ton giant boulder. Whatever. And it stars Tom Atkins as a doctor who finds the first person murdered that has been murdered, and he's investigating, and he finds it out that there's this toy company, and it's surprisingly menacing. The owner of the company doesn't really do any. I mean, he's obviously, in charge of this whole operation, using the magic and they're using Halloween masks. And they're building up for Halloween when they're going to be sending out a signal that's going to basically kill the kids wearing a mask. But he has these people in suits that they get no name. They're like enforcers / assassins that they go around and kill people that know too much and find out too much. And it's those guys, the guys in the suits, are surprisingly very intimidating and menacing because they're always there. And when they go to kill somebody, they do it. Obviously, except for the hero of the movie, Tom Atkins. Obviously, he survives. But I was really impressed by that they would make just a guy in a suit, and they weren't even like big, like super muscular guys or like bodybuilders or anything. They were just regular looking guys in suits. You come to find out that they're not human, but still surprisingly menacing. good on you for that. Um, Tom Atkins is amazing as the main character. He's the doctor who's trying to investigate and find out what happens. He has a girl with him the whole time, and she's the daughter of the first person that got killed by these suits, because he found out what was happening in the factory. They play off each other really well. He is fantastic as this man who's trying to figure out what's going on, and he's not a policeman, he's not a detective, he's a doctor. He's just trying to figure it out, and he's just making it up as he goes along. And he does really well. They end up having to go to this town where is basically the entire town is Irish, and it's a company town. Basically, the town is owned by this company, Silver Shamrock. The most Irish name possibly ever. Just saying. And they're just kind of making it up as they go along. And it's very well done, what they're doing, you know? They're seeing what's happening, you know, they notice immediately when they pull into town that this is a company town, we're going to have to watch ourselves. We can't stand out, we have to be very careful. And they do accordingly. You know, very, very well done. You know, gets to the end, the whole big battle and stuff. I felt the death of the main villain. I felt that the death of the main villain, Connell Cochran, was a little bit kind of out of left field. They basically used the magic of the Stonehenge stone to kill him, and it was this whole weird thing, and it was kind of a weird ending. I felt it was kind of abrupt, but that wasn't the end. You know, they get in the car to drive away, and it turns out that his friend that's with him, this young girl, she's been turned into one of these suit assassin things, and she tries to kill him. And it's actually a really, really funny scene. She attacks him while they're in the car, they wreck the car, she loses an arm, still attacking him. He ends up knocking her head off. He gets back in the car, and then there's an arm in the car because she lost an arm. Literally, one of her arms fell off, and the arm starts to attack him. And he's able to get out of the car and get rid of that, and then her headless, armless torso crawls over and grabs him by the leg, and it's just like, every time he thinks he's done, there's more. It felt like a scene out of, like Return of the Living Dead or something. I mean, it was hilarious. But all in all, it's a really good movie. I mean, really good. Now, before I wrap this review up, because you know, it's pretty much kind of all the main things that I wanted to say about this movie. I wanted to discuss the reasoning behind this movie. Now, sorry, I totally blanked out again. Let me try that again. Now, before I wrap this review up, I pretty much said that all I really wanted to say about this movie. I wanted to talk about the reasonings behind the whole story. The whole storyline of the movie. Because I kind of skipped over some of that. I said I would get back to it. I'm going to. Now, the main villain, the guy who owns the Silver Shamrock Company, Connell Cochran, he is talking to Tom Atkins' character, Dr. Chalice. Sorry, I blanked on that for a second. And he's explaining the reason why he's doing this. He wanted to take Halloween back to his roots, with Halloween. Back to he's Irish. So he's talking about the Celts and the Gaelics. and he was talking about all the stuff that they did, and it's called Season of the Witch, and even when Dr. Chalice says witches, because he's talking about his tribe and things like that. Now, the old Celts and the Gaelics. Now, I'm not saying anything about modern times, more modern times. Wiccanism is a very, very popular religion, and it has been around for a long time. But traditionally, the Celts and the Gaelics were pagan. And pagan is different than Wiccan. There is a subtle difference. And it falls in line with what he's saying. He was talking about Mother Nature, how the earth always knows, the earth decides these things. And pagans were especially the Celtic pagans, were very animistic. They believed in the power of spirits that lied in animals and trees and things that were alive. So this all kind of falls in line. But I felt it weird that it was called the Season of the Witch, when traditionally that would imply some sort of magic, and Celtic paganism didn't really involve the use of that. At least not traditionally, although there was some in the history of it. But what I find kind of funny is that traditionally the main use of magic in Celtic paganism was from a more extreme version of that had been passed down from Druidism. And there were Druids in Old Gaelic and Celtic tribes. And why I find that funny is because in Halloween 2, somebody wrote Samhain on the blackboard when he broke. Michael Myers wrote it on the blackboard when he broke into the elementary school, which, again, that whole scene was so out of left field it made no sense whatsoever. And it wasn't a setup to this movie because they didn't know that they were even going to be doing this movie. So, whatever. But he describes Samhain as the old Druid festival, which it's not. It's Gaelic, but he brought up the Druids and that whole thing. I don't know. There's a lot of layers to that between the history of all the different religions and the use of magic and things like that. And I just found it fascinating. By the way, Dr. Loomis totally mispronounced that word too. He called it Samhain in the most American accent I've ever heard anybody say. You'd think that they would at least learn the proper pronunciation of it. But whatever. But again, interesting idea. I really enjoy this movie because of that idea. Because it was somebody that he had a very, very unique take on it. Somebody that wanted to take Halloween back to his roots. And for the most part, he was right. Although the killing of all the children and the blood and, hills running red with blood and stuff like that, that's more Druid than Celtic polytheism or paganism. They were not as violent, There you go. But yeah. This movie is a very good movie. Give it another chance if you haven't seen it in a long time. It's a good idea, more importantly than that. It's an idea that would work very, very well today. That would work incredibly well today. John Carpenter was just ahead of his time. Thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for the next one, which is going to be Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers.